Global Trends on Nutrition from the Perspectives of Agriculture. In this slides, I am going to talk about global trend of international dialogue on food, nutrition and environment during last 70 years. This trend is classified into roughly 3 phases: transit from simple single-sector approach toward more complex systemic approach. This is a reflection of the problem we faced in each period of time and efforts trying to find solution. This is 4 main contents explaining each stage of transition as explained in the previous slides. 1. History of global environmental issue. 2. History of food security concept. 3. Toward systemic approach. 4. Food system and planetary health diet. One. History of global environmental issue. Overview of international dialogue about global environmental issue and agriculture. Initiation of global dialogue about overall lifestyle of modern human being and destiny of Earth can be tracked back to 1970s. Thorough its publication, The Limits of Growth, Club of Rome, published a cautiously article on current mode of human lifestyle which heavily relying on non-renewable resources. After around 10 years, the concept of environmental pollution introduced new aspect, non-point source. Before this time, pollution problem was more simple. In most cases, geographic scale was as small as town or community, polluter and victim were clearly identified. This is a case of point source pollution. However, after introduction of non-point source, we came to understand that our lifestyle itself is leading pollution, and geographic scale is much bigger than traditional case of pollution. In line with expansion of the concept of pollution, experts start accumulating evidences regarding relationship between traditional mode of agriculture and global environmental damage at the time of late 1980s. Traditional mode of agriculture was sustainable during long human history. However, due to increasing population pressure and economic competition of natural resources, environmental pressure reached to the state that normal environmental regeneration process cannot catch up with. These include overgrazing, overcultivation, and deforestation, which results in 3 global environmental problems: GHG emission, soil degradation, and biodiversity loss. To solve the situation, 3 international convention was agreed among leaders from over 180 countries at Rio Summit in 1992, namely, UN Framework Convention for Climate Change, UN Convention for Biodiversity and UN Convention for Combating Desertification. Through these process, one of the most important concept for international development was proposed, that is, the concept of sustainable development. This concept is further deepened and reflected into global agenda now. Sustainable Development Goal. At the time of Rio Summit, one of the key argument was how to balance role and responsibility among industrial nations and developing nations. As you can clearly see in the graph, amount of GHG emission was almost same between industrialized nation and developing nation. However, if we look back historical accumulation, majority of emission have been done by industrialized nations. In fact, wasting non-renewable natural resources was key economic model of development at least up to 1980s. Under that situation, to carefully balance the role and responsibility, international community introduced new concept, so-called common but differentiated responsibility. This means all the country in the world have common responsibility, but in considering historical, cultural situation and historical background, extent of the duty each country will shoulder may different. Since Rio Summit, researchers and experts have been continuously updating knowledge and evidence about both positive and negative aspects of agriculture to global environmental issue. Negative aspects includes GHG emission related to agriculture practices and biodiversity loss due to land use change. Positive aspects includes function of carbon storage of well-managed farmland, and role of farmland as secondary habitat of wildlife such as wetland. What is environment-friendly diet? As explained in the previous section, there are a number of positive and negative environmental impact from agriculture. Even the case of GHG emission, major technical area includes enteric fermentation and manure management for livestock, fertilizer management from farmland, methane emission control from paddy field, fuel and energy use for machinery, and carbon storage through forest and land management. Let's see the contribution of each technical area in the following slide. This pie chart shows share of GHG emission under different type of economic activities. We can see that the biggest emission comes from heat and energy sector accounts for 35% of total GHG emission. Agriculture and forestry sector is the second biggest sector, which accounts for 25% of total emission. When further disaggregated, half of the emission is from forestry and remaining half is from agriculture. Within agriculture sector, enteric fermentation hold largest share of 40%, followed by manure management as 16%, chemical fertilizer management as 13%, and methane emission from paddy field as 10%. Based on the finding, possible mitigation measures are also being investigated. In 2021, Lancet summarized those technologies in its publication, Eat Lancet. It proposes to minimize negative environmental impact coming from current dietary habit under 3 strategies: 1. Dietary change, 2. Sustainable intensification technology, 3. Reduction of food loss and waste. First and third strategies simply try to reduce negative environmental impact by reducing total consumption. Second strategy is focusing on technical innovation to reduce GHG emission while improving overall productivity. Number of technologies have been proposed, verified and demonstrated for extension. In this slide, key technologies are summarized for 4 technical area: enteric fermentation, manure management, chemical fertilizer management, and land use change. In this slide, technologies are summarized for 3 technical area: rice cultivation, biodiversity, and water resource. Two. History of food security concept. Now in this section, I am going to explain historical transition of international food security dialogue. Currently, there are over 200 of definitions for food security. However, by selecting key agreement among senior officials from the government, we can capture the transition of the food security concept itself. During 1960 to 1970s, when number of countries were facing serious hunger, the core concept of food security was food availability. Key target in agriculture policy was how to increase productivity. Green Revolution was initiated during this period. Rapid productivity improvement of 3 major staples, wheat, rice, and maize, significantly contributed to increase of staple supply, especially in Asian and Latin American countries. However, in 1980s, after dramatic growth in staple productivity, we could still observe hunger in number of countries. People started to realize that food availability is one issue, but there is another critical barrier for food security, that is, food affordability. Accessibility was added as another key issue for food security. In 1990s, when we come to see steady progress in hunger reduction, we understand that even population who avoid serious food insecurity often fell into malnourished state due to low quality of diet. quality of diet was then added as key issue for food security. In 2015, Global Development Target was updated from Millennium Development Goal to Sustainable Development Goal. One of key change in relation to food and nutrition is MDG Goal 1 and SDG Goal 2. During MDG, food security target only define prevalence of undernourishment, acronym as POO. In this case, POO count only number of hunger population. While in case of SDG, the target is expanded as to eliminate all forms of malnutrition, which cover not only serious hunger, but also obesity, micronutrient deficiency, chronic undernutrition and so on. Probably one of the most known current definition of food security is the one agreed in 1996 at World Food Summit held in Rome. Food security exists when all people, at all times, have physical, social, and economic access to sufficient, safe and nutritious food which meets their dietary needs and food preferences for an active and healthy life. Now I am going to explain why the concept of food security evolved by expanding its focus to cover volume, equity, and quality. During 1950s, many countries were at the risk of serious hunger. One of the key issue for development was hunger reduction. After Green Revolution in 1960s to 1970s, world grain supply have been relatively excess. International price decreased accordingly. Nevertheless, the world still see great number of populations suffer from hunger, and we come to recognize hunger as a matter of disparity during late 1970s to 1980s. By mid-80s, symptoms of food security were investigated deeply and time dimension were added, chronic and acute food insecurity. Furthermore, food security debate come to emphasize quality aspect of diet in 90s. In this slide, I tried to draw overall picture that explain an incident occurred during 2007 to 2009 and follow-up discussion, which made a significant impact on international food and nutrition security dialogue. In the next slide, I summarize what happened during 2007 to 2009 and what key question was triggered based on this experience. These explanation covers big box on left side of the slide, plus small box next to it connected through blue arrow, with a set of green label. In 2007-2008, however, world grain stock level reached lowest level in 30 years. This was caused by oil price surge, bad weather in Australia and Europe, rapid demand growth of energy crop for bioethanol, biodiesel. This experience raised multiple issues to international agricultural community, including carrying capacity of the world, sustainable use of bioenergy, responsible agricultural investment, monitoring, regulating speculation, trade embargo, resilience to the price fluctuation, natural calamity. Then, I am going to explain remaining part of the figure in the previous slide. It is about what have been discussed among global health experts during almost the same period. It was well understood that nutrition and food security were non-divisible component. However, it was not effectively harmonized in implementation. In 2008, Lancet released series of scientific papers to alarm limited support in nutrition and science-based evidence on various nutrition intervention. The message received great attention from international community including G8, G20. Number of initiatives have been launched including Scaling Up Nutrition, established in 2010. Sun focused on, first 1000 days, 13 prioritized nutrition intervention, multi-sector approach including agriculture, health, hygiene, and education. In 2013, 6 Global Nutrition Target was adopted by WHO. Finally, all the discussion explained last few slides were summarized and reflected as much as possible in the process of Sustainable Development Goal dialogue. Dialogue on SDG started from the review of achievement of MDG. In terms of MDG Goal 1, there were 3 key findings. 1. Target to have POO was nearly achieved. 2. However, issue still remains as regional discrepancy, and 3. Further action required for hunger elimination. To overcome remaining issue disparity, several focus needs to be emphasized. 1. Support on groups left behind including small-scale farming household. 2. How to improve vulnerable production assets. In addition, in order to reflect recent progress on global dialogue on nutrition, it was important to expand the scope from only hunger into improvement of all forms of malnutrition. As a result, several key concepts were integrated in SDG Goal 2 as follows. Elimination of hunger. To cover all forms of malnutrition, including acute malnutrition, chronic malnutrition, overnutrition. Support on family farming. Support resilience enhancement, which is a common challenge of current vulnerable population. 3. Toward systemic approach. Now I am going to explain final part of this video, about systemic approach, which become increasing popular during just last a few years. Competition and trade-off. Now, let's start from explaining what is systemic approach and why we need it. In the very first slide, I explained about global trend of international dialogue on food, nutrition and environment. It can be divided into 3 phases: single sector approach, competition and trade-off, and systemic approach. In the earlier days, agriculture sector tried to achieve different objective focusing on single target. However, experts started to realize that single sector approach may cause unexpected negative or positive impact to non-target. Then we start considering multiple objective at one time, to make optimal balance among different approaches. Typical example of unexpected negative impact is relationship between nutrition, environment, and agriculture. As it was already explained, if we focus only on production expansion, it gives negative irreversible impact to global environment. If we focus on balanced food supply, increased supply of animal products especially for developing world, it will again give serious damage to global environment. There is also competition between food security and nutrition improvement. Because some group of people suffer from hunger or acute malnutrition, which stable supply of dietary energy is essential component, while other group of people suffer chronic malnutrition or micronutrient deficiency, which diversified, balanced diet play a critical role. Systemic approach is a way to identify optimal balance among set of different policy target. Through the course of international dialogue on global environmental issue, in other words SDG, climate change, biodiversity, etc., it was identified that various human activities, deeply connecting each other, giving positive and negative impact to the environment. Systemic approach was taken to clarify complex interrelationship among various human activities and find out optimal balance among them. During last decade, integration of food security and nutrition have shown remarkable progress. And now, experts tries to integrate environment in this framework through application of systemic approach. This direction became clear during last a few years through Food Systems Summit, N4G, and publication like Eat Lene. What is planetary health diet? Now before closing, I am going to introduce planetary health diet quickly, the concept proposed by the publication titled Eat Lancet in 2021. Key concept of planetary health diet is to recommend optimal diet balance in considering not only nutrition, but also impact of dietary culture to global environment. The report conduct meta-analysis using existing scientific literature to capture latest reliable figure regarding relationship between dietary culture, nutrition, health, and environment. And based on the result of this meta-analysis, planetary health diet is summarized as set of recommendation of daily recommended intake of key food groups. The result of meta-analysis clearly shows that current dietary culture is not healthy enough in most of country, region. It also clarify current dietary culture is giving irreversible environmental impact. Lastly, it conducts several scenario analysis to identify possible pathway for human being to ensure healthy diet and lifestyle while maintaining environmental sustainability. In the left side, you can see for each 9 food category, recommended daily intake as shows in gram per capita per day. This is a recommended value determined based on existing scientific literature about nutrition and environment. In the right side, you can see pie chart which compare these recommendation and actual food supply in each region. There is very big difference by region, oversupply and undersupply by different commodity group. Each region is unique, as well as not complying planetary health diet at all. This chart show environmental impact of 6 scenario with different technology option. The scenario includes 1. Dietary shift, which follow planetary health diet. 2. Have waste, which reduce food loss and waste by half. 3. Prod, adoption of high-yielding technology. 4. Prod plus, adoption high-yielding technology more intensively. 5. COM, adoption of technology combination including high-yielding, GHG emission reduction and other. 6. COM plus, more intensive application of COM. 6 kinds of environmental impact is verified in this assessment, which includes biodiversity loss, GHG emission, land use change, fertilizer management, water usage and other. Height of each pie indicates the extent of damage to the environment. Red line set for each environmental category is borderline for sustainability. As you can see, under most of 6 environmental category, only COM plus option can fit within borderline. Possible actions to harmonize competition and trade-offs. As a conclusion of their analysis, Eat Lancet propose 3 key strategy to minimize competition and trade-offs, while enhance synergy and impact among food security nutrition environment triangle. Dietary changes towards healthy diets. Technological and management-related changes in food production, sustainable intensification. Reductions in food loss and waste. Thank you very much.